Real chunky, huh? It's unfortunate for them they cannot hurt VALKYR, but you know. 62 was a good stopping point anyway. Yeah, it's definitely not bad. 62 rounds, Exolizers. Enemies at level 921 and they have double health, double armor. Sarah says slow down. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another of the 2022 builds refreshes. Obviously, this is for VALKYR, which is not in order, but she is uniquely good at one of the good modes that has recently come out. So I wanted to talk about her and her problems because I've been doing the work on her anyway. So here we are. Also, once again, apologies that I was sick like the entire last week. And could not make this video after showing it in the video that came out before the dev stream one, which was like a whole week ago at this point. That was showing off this build, and then we didn't actually show the build until just now. Anyway, as is important in this video, it is important to note that this build, I will say, is extremely expensive, and there are places where you can cut, and there are other places where you cannot cut. So we're going to be going over all of that stuff, what's important to VALKYR, and what can be trimmed down on if you just don't have the resources or don't have the different items that you need for this build. So let's get started. First and foremost, we are going to just discuss the weapons I have equipped. So on the secondary, I'm using my Latem build from the recent video I did on the Latem. This weapon's absolutely insane. This is a 7 forma build. The only important thing on this in relation to VALKYR is secondary dexterity. You want this because of the combo duration, as that helps you keep your combo up, and then, of course, by proxy of that, do considerably more damage with VALKYR's claws. Not that that is even usually needed. So, secondary dexterity, very good. You should have it in your secondary weapon. You can also equip a primary weapon and use primary dexterity, but you really don't need that much combo. And also, I find it more convenient to just not even have a primary equipped. As for VALKYR, it's actually kind of a hindrance that we have to have guns equipped at all, because you can accidentally switch to your guns even while you're in your 4, and then you become not invincible, which is the equivalent of instantly dying as VALKYR. So, moving on, we have the Praetos. The Praetos, I would say, are the #1 best stat stick for VALKYR due to their passives and because not much affects VALKYR's 4 that comes from her main melee. The stuff that affects VALKYR's 4 are the 3 gladiator mods in this build. That is the only stuff that is important in this whole build. You don't need any Forma on the Praetos. Don't need anything except for those 3 gladiator mods and the evolution choice, which is 03322. As a reminder for what that means, it is 0 because there's no choice on your first evolution, and then it is 3322. You get 3 choices. This is the third choice. This is the third choice. This is the second choice. This is also the second choice that you get. So the only thing that's really helping us here is the plus 20% sprint speed and slide, and then the plus 30% parkour velocity. The other 2 picks are because the rest of the mods that are in this build are for doing heavy attacks. So if you, for some reason, end up in a situation where you are doing heavy attacks with these instead of, in VALKYR's 4 at the very least, you are doing more damage. So that's pretty much just the point of these other 2 evolutions. All that really matters is Evolution 2 and Evolution 4. And those are going to help quite a bit. Plus 20% slide and sprint speed helps VALKYR actually quite a lot in terms of killing a lot of enemies very, very quickly. With that, let's start talking about the actual main build on VALKYR. So we have subsumed over her 1 and added Shuriken. This is vitally important, and it is vitally important that you use it with Seeking Shuriken. If you do not have Seeking Shuriken or the ability to subsume Shuriken, you need to find other avenues of armor stripping, and it needs to be complete armor stripping. We are going to talk about a good solution when we get to her claws, an okay solution when we get to her claws, but there's not a lot of complete armor stripping available, and it is very important. So I would definitely suggest that you use Seeking Shuriken if you have any capability to do so, and it is probably one of the hardest to get parts of this build, as farming a set of regular Ash is kind of a colossal pain in the ass. Besides that, this is a pretty normal build, I would say. We are running Steel Charge up here, Power Drift, and then we've got, just strength. We've got a bunch We got, up at 214% strength. That's before considering our conditionals, which is plus 50% from energy conversion. And then also using Matter between energy conversion and Matter that is a plus 90%, putting us at just over 300% strength, which is tons. Tons of strength. Honestly, you don't really need all of it. So if you want to cut down on Forma on this, you could just not include energy conversion at all. And that will save you quite a bit of Forma just by itself. Other things that I would say are necessary in this build: max efficiency for Hysteria. Between the 160 actual efficiency we have and the 167% duration, which gives us channeling efficiency. If you don't know what channeling efficiency is, once again, go watch my video on what channeling efficiency is. It'll help you in the long run. But between the amount of duration and efficiency we have built, we are at the absolute minimum, which is 3.75 energy drain per second for Hysteria. This is vitally important, as this ability has one of the worst energy economies in all of Warframe, if not actually the worst. It is truly awful and terrible. So for that, not only do we have that max efficiency, we also have primed flow, and I have arcane energize equipped, and on my operator I have a maxed dissipate. So pretty much everything that we can do in order to get energy. I will note, you do not need energize for this build. It is not necessary. It does make it a lot more comfy because you will have to use dissipate less when you use arcane energize. Other thing that's notable: if you are in a dense enough enemy environment, such as Steel Path Survival, you will not need to use dissipate probably almost ever, maybe at the start of a mission, because that amount of enemies, killing them fast enough, will still provide you with enough energy to keep going. In the Cascade, where this build I would generally use it, and where I have been using it, you need to use those small groups of enemies and use dissipate on them in order to get enough energy to keep going, because the spawn rates, especially in solo, are super insanely low, and there's almost no energy in that mission just in general. So yeah, there's all of that. Narrow-minded and the positive duration is helping us in the event that we want to cast Warcry, and also the duration increase on Shuriken can also be helpful. So this lasting 13 seconds is nice. I will say, almost never with this build will you need to cast Warcry. This is more of a thing where if you're at max energy, you might as well throw it on, as it will allow you to do your attacks faster, and that's nice. I would say more often than not, you might use this for the slow on enemies, more so than anything else, which says a lot about its utility. You can technically build VALKYR around Warcry and not use her 4, but my opinion on that build is that if I'm not using VALKYR's 4, I don't know why I'm this Warframe, because her 3 is useless and her 2 is subsumable on someone else. So if I'm building around her 2, you could just be a different, better Warframe for whatever situation you're in. If you're not using Hysteria, I would not suggest playing this frame at all. So yeah, there's that. Other things of note, our other arcane is Arcane Fury. This gives a 180% melee damage to melee weapons for 18 seconds. Really good. You're going to have this proc constantly. It's basically like double prime pressure point. Actually, it's even better than that. And that's phenomenal. Worth noting, you can move things around a bit, and this could be Strike instead. If you want to get your attack speed from your arcane slot, Strike is very good at that. You can get all the speed that you're going to need from there. And there are definitely things that can be moved around as needed just for convenience sake. Speaking of things that can be moved around as needed for convenience sake, let's talk about her talons. Okay, talking about the talons. Now, obviously, looking at this, you're seeing 4 Forma and 5 maxed out primed mods. And I would suggest this build. This is the build that I would suggest. However, let's go through the things that you don't need. You do not need Prime Pressure Point. You can just use regular. You do not need Prime Fever Strike. You can just use regular. You do not need Prime Fury. You can just use Quickening. So that's 120,000 endo off the books there. You can definitely just like tone all that stuff down and be absolutely more than fine, and it will also cost you less Forma. So with that all said, what is necessary in this build, and what would I suggest you definitely need in order to use VALKYR? Primed Reach. She desperately needs this range. Her claws, like all claws, are not long, and she absolutely needs Primed Reach. for dealing with nullifiers, and also just to be able to hit enough enemies to matter. So yeah, you absolutely have to have Primed Reach. You probably don't need it at max rank, but I would really highly suggest you have it at least 8 or 9 if you're going to plan on using VALKYR at all, outside of course, like maybe very early game, but obviously none of this stuff is very relevant for that. Other things of note, this is where there comes the suggestion. If you do not have the ability to subsume Ash's Shuriken, you can use Shattering Impact. Now, Shattering Impact is a weird mod that I'm going to explain exactly how it works, because most people have no idea how this works. So, impact damage reduces enemy armor by 6. Now, considering enemies have thousands and thousands and thousands of armor, that doesn't sound very useful. However, what this actually does is it takes every impact hit you do, and it will reduce enemy base armor by 6. So, if an enemy has 6 base armor, they now have 0 armor no matter what level they scaled to, because you hit them once. Notably, the Cascade Thrax have 200 base armor, but VALKYR attacks very quickly, hitting pretty much like 6 times a button press or so. So for that, they're going to lose their armor pretty quickly. It's not as good as Ashes 1. Not even close as good to it. Not even close to as good as Ashes 1. But you can take this build, remove Prime Fury, and use Arcane Strike in your Warframe instead, and then use Shattering Impact here, and that will be good enough. You can go very, very far in Cascade with that. You're just going to be like slower on killing the Thrax, but that's probably fine overall. And that armor is removed permanently. So yeah. Shattering Impact, I mean, it does affect every enemy you hit. So, like, theoretically, on like larger amounts of enemies, like, this is going to strip significant amounts of armor. Like, it is not going to be any small amount, especially with the amount of hits that you do. Usually, with the only attack that's worth using on VALKYR, you hit 6 times. So, whenever you hit 6 times, 6 times 6, you got 36 base armor removed. That is a enormous chunk of scaled armor that you're removing every time you attack. And also it'll just kill them as soon as it can, whenever that armor gets low enough, and you can see your damage ramp up as you're hitting an enemy, which is kind of nice as well to see. Now, let's talk about VALKYR's major flaw. The most major flaw a frame can have that is built this way is that their stance and their 4 exalted weapon is not good. VALKYR's talons are one of the worst exalted weapon movesets in the game, if not actually definitely the worst. So, in-game it looks like this. Obviously, it like bleeds over and things are overlapping and all this stuff. So, this one does not give you all the information you need for this discussion. So, I'm going to throw the one from the wiki up over it, and we're going to have a discussion about this. So, we're going to go over them in order. Fervor, as you can see, is 100% on every single one of its hits. The blue icon means that it is a 360 attack, and then the like down arrow icon means that it is a knockdown. So Fervor does not have any positive damage modifiers outside of like there being double hits, and then ends on a knockdown. You'll notice that this move and Rage and Madness and Delirium and Rise from Ashes, and Launching Spring, and 1 point. All of it has no guaranteed procs besides knockdown at all. So it is horrible in here. It is absolutely terrible. The claws do not proc slash almost ever, due to the changes to the way IPS status is calculated, and also due to there being no guarantees at all. And reminder that for some reason, VALKYR's claws are an even like 1/3 split between impact, puncture, and slash on them. So getting slash procs just is not going to happen, which is why the armor stripping is so important for her, because she doesn't have a regular way to get through that armor with slash procs. So it's real dire in here. Also with that, if we look at Fervor, Rage, Madness, and Delirium, throughout all of those, every single one, you will notice that there is no damage modifier that is above 200%. And for a 200% modifier, there are only 2 of them. Counting up all of the percent hits and double hits and all that stuff from Fervor, Rage, Madness, and Delirium, we reach a grand total, like, percent of like motion value, basically, of 3,800%. That's if you do every single one of her actual combos, blocking and moving, blocking while moving, while not moving. If you do all of those, you get 3,800%. Now let's talk about what you should actually be doing, which is launching Spring. Launching Spring is her slide attack. It is 6 300% modifier attacks in a 360-degree radius while moving. Which means if you do 2 slide attacks, which are all more than 4 times as fast as doing any of her combos, you will do 3,600% motion value. Meaning there is no point in doing a single one of Fervor, Rage, Madness, or Delirium ever, under any circumstances. The only move that you should use besides her slide attack is her jumping attack, which is 1 point, which is while in air. That is because 1 point has a 200% modifier, and then 2 200% modifiers, and then a 300% modifier that guarantees a knockdown. And the reason that 1 point would get used is because 1 point allows you to jump to the head level of an enemy and get headshots with your melee, because it's actually pretty good at that. And when you're getting headshots with the melee, that allows it to perform near as well as the slide attack and gives you the ability to focus on one enemy very well. So that's what's up with VALKYR. Most of her moveset is completely devoid of value and completely useless. I would love to see a complete rework of Fervor, Rage, Madness, and Delirium to not only be better moves, but to include guaranteed slash procs, as, you know, she's the sharp-clawed cat frame. I would love to see that happen for VALKYR, because right now, all of these moves are completely terrible, and the only thing you should be doing is the jumping and sliding attacks. Worth noting, the heavy attack is fine, but it's better to build around the slide and air attacks and use the build that we're using as opposed to building around the heavy attack, because the heavy attack doesn't really have fantastic modifiers on it and also does not hit a whole lot of enemies either. Anyway, back to the game stuff. Just to put a note here, because I said it before, Impact, Munchkin, Slash are all even. And as another random note, Buzzkill and mods like this that add Slash, those are going to change your proportion of Slash procs that you're going to get, but not in a meaningful way, and they will not increase the amount of damage of a Slash procs. So don't use this mod. Even though VALKYR is on it, doesn't mean it's good for her. So with all of that out of the way, other stuff. VALKYR does have other options for armor stripping in the focus trees. If we look at the focus trees, we do have the option of going for Unairu because we have Caustic Strike. This is the operator's second ability with Unairu. Launches an energy bomb that explodes and strips 100% of armor when it's maxed out. You can tap it again to detonate it in mid-flight. This, very good. This is definitely an option. Does the same thing as Ashes Shuriken for your build. It does lock you into Unairu, which can be undesirable, but pretty good overall. I will say the one major problem with being locked into Unairu is that if you're going really, really late in Steel Path Cascade, you do have to be on Matarai in order for your damage to keep up. Also, benefits of being on Matarai are that you get Sling Strength, which is 40% ability strength, which just makes your claws even stronger. Also, Chained Sling really helps you get around in Void Cascade much faster, as you get twice as many Void Slings as anyone that is not using this. And of course, access to Void Strike to help kill those extremely high-level Thrax, and so on and so forth. But yeah, just mostly like the also additional damage because you're going to be getting, you know, the casting speed, it doesn't usually come up, but the physical damage increase will come up. And yeah, just so many reasons to go Matarai if you can swing it. But Unairu is an option if you just need access to that armor stripping, which I will point out again is the most important thing. So yeah, with that, in terms of gameplay for today, I could go for and show you the exact same run that we did in the Steel Path Cascade video, but that is going to involve pretty much the same things. I will note that for doing slide attacks, as you are seeing, this is, of course, without me using the 2 or anything, and these slide attacks are quite good. If you want to do slide attacks fast, I would highly advise, just for your hand health, that you bind a button, like with software, to be both crouch and melee attack. That button will then, every time you click it, act as a slide attack button. You can, of course, just like slide attack like normal, and that's like all fine and good. Like that's not going to be like really any different at all. That's what I'm doing right now. But yeah, I would highly advise, just for hand health, to bind that stuff to one button if you're going to play VALKYR, as that is, of course, the useful move. And then her other one being her air attack here, as you can see. But yeah, that's pretty much what's up for VALKYR. We can shred some dudes real quick. I'm sure that'll be fine. 17 corrupted heavy gunners. Sure, I'll unpause their AI. Not that it's going to matter because I'm invincible. But yeah, this is with like the lower strength. And obviously these enemies are non-steel path, but as long as we're getting those big modifiers, just the raw amount of damage that we're doing is going to be able to get through the armor here, as you can easily see. These enemies don't come anywhere near even your baseline steel path Thrax enemies, even with their armor. So yeah, they're not really super comparable, but they are like the highest level stuff I can spawn in here. So yeah, that's pretty much what's up with VALKYR. If you want to see her used in that Steel Path Cascade, go on and check out the Steel Path Cascade video and like why you should do it. But that's VALKYR. Lots of problems on this frame. A useless 3, a bad moveset on her 4 for the most part, and then a 1 that's easily replaced with something that strips armor because she desperately needs it. But if you want to be invincible and do Cascade in a comfy manner, VALKYR, I would say, is the way to go. But yeah, that is going to do it for this video. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow.